Hello, welcome back to What Did You Find Out About Costa Rica? Right now I wanted to go over what we had discovered about the immigration process, meeting with Adrian Fernandez. He's a immigration lawyer out of San Jose. He came down to San Isidro to meet with us over lunch to answer a few questions, answer any of our questions that we might have, and also extend his email address for us to get any additional questions that we might have answered in the future. This is what I've learned so far. There's you have tourist visa. That's when you go down on a passport and you travel around, and there's a requirement that you have to leave the country within 90 days. When you actually, in theory, there's a requirement that when you come into the country, you have to have an outbound ticket. Sometimes that's enforced, and sometimes that isn't enforced. And you also have to have $500 in cash per person. Now, if that's enforced or not either, especially with the new age of credit cards and things like that. We were not asked any of that when we went through immigration, but we did end up having a round trip ticket. Jane, at one time when she came back into the country, because she doesn't have her temporary resident status yet, and she's been down here for 14 years, and actually is an investor in property, a lot of property in the San Isidro area, and been operating a great business. So she actually was asked one of the last times if she had a return ticket. She ended up having to go buy a return ticket, to be able to complete her processing to get back in the country. And then once she did, she just canceled the ticket or whatever. But one of the things is if you're living in the country for an extended period of time and it's 90 days in and out, many folks either choose the Nicaragua border or the Panamanian border. And these border crossings have a lot of authority now. They didn't have it in the past, but it's something that's new, that the agents down, if you call them officials or agents down at the border crossing, have the ability to deny you re-entry for a certain period of time. And Panama, the Panamanian border, I've heard stories about people leaving and then being required to stay in Panama for 3 days or so, and then they were able to come back in. And once you've done that, you're good for another 90 days. How common that is, having to stay away, it doesn't sound like it's a very common thing, but you need to understand that that is a possibility, so have your plans in order to do so. There's 3 different types of the residency. There's the temporary, and then you go for permanent, and then you can go for citizenship. But you have the tourist, and you're obligated to leave the country back and forth, and then you get to a place where you decide, hey, I want to apply for temporary residency. Well, it's going to involve some sort an amount of investment in money, and I'll go through those steps real quick with you. And some of the processes that you need to have. You have to have a birth certificate that's been issued within the last 6 months. What difference that makes? It makes a difference to them. It doesn't sound like it makes very much sense, but regardless, you've got to have a birth certificate that's been issued within the last 6 months. You also have to have a police record check issued by a local police or the sheriff's office within 6 months of age as well. And then you have to get these documents notarized. Yes, you have to go and get them notarized. And then after that, you go through what's called the apostille process. You send it to the State Department, where they will go ahead and authenticate who has authenticated those documents. Now you've got pretty much the documentation that you'll need in order to apply for residency or temporary residency. Now you may be asking, well, if you can be a temporary or just a tourist on a tourist visa, why would you want to go through the hassle of becoming a resident? It's only one time a month you're required to leave out of the country. Well, there's a couple of reasons why you might consider that, and one of those is because laws change. Things could change. You've got all of your items moved down here. Perhaps you've even purchased some property, And the laws changed. Now you're restricted from even being able to come into the country, or can only come into the country a certain period of time. Now with your temporary residency status, I just want to make a note that you have to be in country a total of at least 4 months out of the year. So remember that. So you might pursue this residency status because of laws, particular laws changing. Or laws also have been changed and it went into effect July 1st. And some people may not think it's a big deal, but it is, I think, going to be very affect a lot of things. It's the it's a law that's built into the American Rehiring Act, but it's like this line item that was placed in there, and it has to do with the law that's trying to discover those bank accounts out there that citizens have used, U.S. citizens and other countries' citizens have used to put their money offshore in order to avoid taxation. Well, now it's become more stringent that a bank is required to, if they have an account that is not a resident of their country, they're required to document in depth, which is very cumbersome, a lot of paperwork, and report the income or the amounts to the applicable government. Now, if they violate this, if it's found that they're in violation of that, then it could limit their ability to borrow money from greater institutions, and one of those being the IMF. So banks don't want to mess with foreign bank accounts any longer. It doesn't make sense. They don't make that kind of money in order to risk so much. So you're going to find that if you're not a resident, you're probably not going to be able to open a bank account, not a personal bank account. Now, you might be able to explore an LLC or something like that, and that might be possible. But if not, then you're going to have, it'll be more costly to use your money because of certain fees associated with the movement of money. And it could be restrict you from some opportunities depending upon how you need to apply certain amounts of money for purchasing and things like that. So it'd be a lot easier to have a bank account down in Costa Rica, and in order to do that, you have to have some sort of residency. It's not everywhere right now, but I believe it's going to end up being extended to everywhere. So that's one of the concerns, and that's why I would consider, if I were going to plan on staying there for long term, gain temporary residency. Now, if you're a pensioner, I'll have to go back a little bit. So if you're a pensioner and you're applying, you need to have that go through the apostille process as well. And it has to document at least $1,050 or more. One thing that you want to keep in mind when you're getting your verification is that, let's say a couple, both of them are each receiving Social Security in the amount over $1,050. Well, it would only require documentation of one of those in order to complete the residency application. In fact, if let's say Joe of the couple is pulling in $1,800 off pension and his wife Social Security is $1,100, they could both be included under her $1,100 pension for Social Security or whatever. The reason that's important is because the CAHA, which is the public medical insurance, it's the medical system here, that I've been told that you probably won't use, but you can use. It's just crowded and selective, just like normal public health systems across the world, those that exist. It has the same issues as anywhere else, but you can use it, and I know some people who have used it and some have been happy with it. It's actually saved them from financial ruin. But anyway, in order to keep your CAHA payments down, you want whatever the lowest amount of documented income, because your fee or your tax associated with being in the CAHA is based upon what you've documented, and it ranges on a scale from 7 to 13%, depending upon what kind of money that you're actually documenting. So it's a good idea to look at that very closely, because it could save you a whole lot of money. Some people are paying as low as $50 a month for their caja tax, and others, it might be 150 or so, and it could be even more than that, depending upon what you've got documented. Now, the process that we would be trying to accomplish, or the type of residency, would be a pensionado, a pension. In order to retire as a pensioner, you need to be able to document at least $1,050 income per month from a pension, or such as Social Security or military retirement or something of that nature. And also, or if you're an annuitant, if you have an annuity that'll pay out a certain amount, guaranteed to pay out a certain amount of money over an extended period of time that will not be changed, that'll allow you to apply for that under that status. There's another way, it's called vincula, and that's if you marry, and since I'm already married, that's not an option for me, and or if you have children, and since I'm still young at heart, but things have changed, it's probably not likely that we're going to try that avenue either. But other people could. So even if they're visiting as a tourist, they have a baby in the country, automatically that baby is, now certain steps we'll have to go through, but automatically considered a citizen, and that right is extended to the rest of the immediate family, the parents of the child and the siblings. Now you can apply as an investor, and it's a little bit more cumbersome process. It's not one that I know all of the steps for, but I know that that's an option out there in order to become a resident, and I think that's how some people that I was talking to are actually going to become or apply for residency. And I believe the threshold for as an investor would be at $200,000 of property. And some other particulars. In fact, if you have questions about it or whatever, I can get those questions answered for you through direct communication with Adrian. But I'll be sharing Adrian's information as well, so that you could get in touch with him yourself. After you've got the apostille process on your documents completed, then you are going to be working closely with an attorney. There are different priced attorneys out there with different reputations, yet it's best to find somebody who can be trusted, or someone you trust has worked with and it's come out well. They have different amounts of that they'll charge or whatever. Adrian is about in the middle of that, from $0 to $5,000 it may cost. Adrian's about $20,000 for us, a family of 4, about $2,500. You'll have to have fingerprints done, pictures completed, certain forms completed, the translation of your documents done, and there's an application fee per person. It's $250 per person for just the application fee. Then at a later time, and you're also going to get a limited power of attorney for your attorney to be able to work on your behalf. And then later, you'll have to do what's called a guaranteed bond. It's on each particular person. It's $300 per person, and the last fee is going to be $98 per person for what's called a cedula, which is a residency card. And this whole process is supposed to take 90 days, but actually it takes close to a year at this point. But regardless, your attorney will follow up, will be responsible to follow up with that process. And in the meantime, you're just on a tourist visa, so you need to leave the country and come back. You shouldn't, once you've applied for temp residency, you shouldn't have to leave the country, but there is a little glitch in if you're wanting to drive in the country, it's required that you have your passport and your driver's license issued from your state. I'm talking about people from the United States. So because of that glitch, it is required that your passport be within 90 days, and because of that, then people still have to leave the country even though the application for temp residency has been in place. You hold a temp residency status for 2 years, and then you put in an application to extend for another year. So now you have 3 years. After that, you can apply for permanent residency. So you're temporary, then it's extended temporary, and then permanent. And then later you can apply for citizenship, which requires study and testing on Costa Rican history and law, I suppose. So knowing a little bit about the residency process, I'm not answering every question that you're going to have. I didn't intend to, but I wanted to highlight the big steps, those things that, so that you can envision, okay, what's this going to look like? And now I understand more clearly as to why people will move down, rent a place, learn the area before they buy, then purchase property, and then move into that property. And the same thing as far as your residency. Move down, rent, learn the place, decide if you really want to stay before you invest the money in all of this application process. You decide to stay, then you apply for temporary residency. You work for the first 2 years through that temporary residency. You extend. Now you've got 3 years. After that, then you apply for permanent, as long as you're happy with what's going on. You've probably gotten very good with the language. You've embraced the culture. You fit in, and you're loving it. But it's a process, so you don't have to take it all one bite at a time. But it's important to know what's actually where you're headed down the lane in the event that you decide, hey, Costa Rica is a place for me. So anyway, I hope it is helpful for you. I will share Adrian Fernandez's contact information. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and certainly be involved in the process of your application for residency. Thank you. Have a good one.